Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Season 2 finale of Gyeongseong Creature. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we had that little flashback at the beginning, and I guess it's like relatively before Jang, lost his memories. It's probably one of the last times him and Seong-jo met. It's probably like that conversation they had at the beginning of the episode is probably what led to him going to Maeda and telling her he's choosing his side. But he had this whole conversation about like, why are you going to fight? Like, what's the point of fighting? It's like, you can't win this fight. And for him, it's like, it's to make a point to make them never forget. Or initially, it's like about making them ask for forgiveness. They need to, because they're not even apologetic because they don't see what they did as something wrong. But even if I can't make them, feel apologetic, at the very least, I'm going to make sure that they never forget what they've done. Because Seong-jo's like, what are you going to do? And I think the sentiment he has is like, right, it was in the past, it was, and, even Jang is like, yeah, it was the past. It was a time where everyone did whatever they needed to do to survive, but I'm still going to make sure that they never forget, because even if it was the times, it doesn't get rid of the terrible things that you've done to people's lives you've ruined. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because that plays a role in the following scene between him and Cheok, just because it's like there's layers to it of the whole like, oh yeah, just like it was so long ago, like why kind of be so burdened by the past, which is so interesting because I also feel like that's probably a perspective he kind of has because of Maeda maybe. But either way, the reason why he's doing all this, going back to where Cheok and Seong-jo's situation ended. All right, really quickly, there was also that line of, how much do you trust me? And Jang's like, it's not about how much, it's just I trust you. And yeah, he's doing this because he's afraid to die. And, Cheok is like, why are you doing it? Because in his mind, it's like, I'm like, me doing this is going to be keeping Jang alive because he has no connection to Cheok. It's like, it's going to suck. He's going to be hurt that you're gone. But at the end of the day, at least Jang will be alive. So it's that thing of so many people around him doing things that they probably wouldn't have done just because they're trying. Because tying this in with like Yeongil, I was under the impression, and this was just my own misconception, I thought Yeongil was only put into Jang's life to keep an eye on him. I thought he was hired like the past year to keep an eye, but it's like, no, just like all the antennas and other people who knew about, I mean, to be fair, he did say like, oh, I know who you were before, but I thought that was like him placating. I thought that was him like lying based on like him being hired and stuff, trying to scare Jang away. Like I said, that was my own misconception. Just like, no, they have a long history just like he does with anyone else. I mean, once again, considering who his grandfather is, considering that the business is made out from the House of the Golden Treasure, like I just, like I said, it just didn't click in my head until like he's begging in front of Maeda. It's like, please, he's like, I will bet my life on it, just please let Jang live. And so you're like, right, he wasn't some terrible guy. Like, he wanted to keep Jang from remembering anything, because if he did, Maeda would come after him. So as long as like he's being watched and there's no signs of his memories coming back, then he could live a happy life and not have to be drowned out by the past, because he saw how Jang was so consumed by the past previously about everything that happened. I mean, that's the sad thing about having those memories and living for a long time. Those memories stay with you. They don't fade away after everything you've been through. And just like I said, it just comes from a perspective of like I said, I knew that Gil cared about him, but now it adds layers. Like I said, it's always been there, but I just think I misinterpreted their relationship and not realizing like how deep that ran. I mean, even with his grandfather and all that, it still didn't register of like how deep his connection was with Jang. Because like to him, he'd probably view Jang as like, well, you're someone important to my family, but also you're someone that I think of like a brother and a best friend. So it means a lot to him. And you see that like, later on in the episode, like how desperate he's like, yo, Jane, come with us. I do not do this. You need to be selfish for once and look after your own life. So we'll get to that later. But circling back to the Seong-jo of it all, because like I said, it's just the parallels. But Cheok tried to tell him, like, do you know what happened to your mom? And he was like, oh yeah, I know. But at the end of the day, he's like, it was so long ago. Like, the past is the past. Like, why does that matter? You know, it's like, how could you let like Maeda like graze you and stuff like that? He's like, oh, but the fact that, because she's like, don't you realize that? Don't you think she's using you? He's like, yeah. But in fact, it's actually the other way around. I'm using her to survive. Her need to keep me around. Like, yeah, she had her own reasons, but in her own effed up way, she did raise me and she did teach me how to survive. She kept me alive. She kept me, you know, even though it wasn't perfect love, it was the closest thing he had to a mother's love, which is twisted and F up in his own regard. So, but he was ready to kill Cheok, but luckily Jisoo had followed them and ended up like blasting him, and I guess like the bullet never exited from his eye. That's why his eye never fully recovered. But it wasn't also just her. That group, I'm already forgetting their name, was it the Kuroko or something like that? They show up and attack him, and Cheok uses that opportunity to run away with Jisoo to try and get her out of there. But yeah, it's like, wait, why are you guys attacking me? What's going on here? Who sent you? And he finds out later on who sent him other than his mother, because she even says this line later on of like, I should have killed you like a year ago when you chose Jang over me. But she was a little too sentimental and she wanted to keep him around because regardless of everything, she tried to like be emotionless and attached. Like, she still loved him, but she could also make the argument like, no, you were kind of like the perfect pet project, and it's just like she already put too much investment in you just to let it go. But it's like, you chose Jang before and now you're kind of siding with Jang again, and it's like, I can't take any chances. Like, I let this go once, and I should have killed you back then, but I'm not going to make that mistake again. So she sent her people after, which was a mistake. I guess maybe she thought like she'd catch him off guard, or maybe she thought like maybe him and Cheok would fight and he'd be wounded enough to end up, because Cheok let her guard down around him. So I guess like maybe she thought he'd be wounded enough, like they had tussled or something, but he was in perfect enough health. Well, despite losing an eye and getting shot multiple times. Like, once again, he's recovering, but he's still like down one eye, but he's still pretty powerful, and he's able to kind of kill everybody. So Jisoo sadly gets caught by the big dude and the rest of the group. At the same time, which I should also talk about this too, because it was something in the back of my mind. I've kind of thought it, but I don't think I've talked about it. It's like how crazy powerful Jang is. He seems to be outclassing every other person with a Najin in him, because I'm like, he's ridiculously powerful. Because like even Home Dude, like kind of easy. Like, I mean, it doesn't end up in like a like full-blown brawl, but it's still a thing of he's still easily, I mean, maybe he wasn't trying as hard, who knows, but at the end of the day, like, Jang was still kind of outclassing him during the fight. Yeah, I mean, he started off with just a knife going toe-to-toe with this dude's sword, and it just, Jang just was like whooping ass. And even later on, the big dude, he takes him down so effortless. I'm like, man, like, is he just a special case? Maybe it's that human willpower that is just like, yo, like, I am so, I don't know. Like, he just seems like he's stronger. I would assume he'd outclass Seongjo, but it's also like, well, because Seongjo also has that added benefit of his, the tendrils he shoots out. Once again, it's not like a full transformation, but he has that more than anyone else does. Because like Jane doesn't have that, neither does Cheok. Doesn't seem like anyone else does either. Because once again, his circumstances are a little different from anyone else that got a Najin. Because the Najin came to them, whereas like he was born because the Najin from Myung or Akiko like went to him. So either way, just before he could like stab Home Dude with the pin that will like nullify his Najin or put it to sleep, he stops him and he's like, hey, I actually don't care how this whole situation plays out. I just want this fighting to be over, because he only has one goal in mind. He wants a Najin so that he can put it inside of like a well preserved and shown to be like, okay, like this Najin won't kill someone if it's transplanted. Once again, he wants to, we know his motivation from last episode. He wants to, you know, help his daughter. So it's like, fine, like I don't care who, like I'm not choosing her side, I'm not choosing yours, I'm choosing my own side. I just want the fighting to end. So he's willing to help out, but the problem is Maeda knows exactly what he's up to. So, and it's a twofer. She screws over his plan while also like sticking a knife into Jang, because at the same time this is all going down, Young Gil had woken up and he contacts Captain Yu, and Captain Yu's like, oh, like he's about to roll out, and that detective was like, oh, are you where are you going? I was like, don't tell him where you're going. Don't tell him where you're going. And he's like, oh, I'm going to go see Yeongil, who just woke up. I was like, oh. My immediate thought was, oh my God, they're going to kill Yeongil just to kind of keep him quiet. Because the whole like, oh, are you going to bet your life, that coming full circle? So I was like, oh, that's what's going to happen. Because I once again, I know that guy's a dirty cop. I didn't need the end of the episode to tell me, but it confirmed it. But I was like, yeah, they knew exactly where you were just to ambush you. Like like I said, I thought they were going to kill Yeongil. I didn't expect him to go after Captain Yu, but we find out that was all part of the plan. And this is also where, because I thought when we saw Home Dude's daughter in front of the tank, I guess she was there waiting on standby for him to come back, but waiting for her father to come back. But the problem is that like they got Jong Hyuk first. But like I said, that's why she's like, it's a two for screwing his plan over, but also it's my plan and my revenge takes precedent over whatever you got going on. And so Jang ends up, walking through the hospital, well, obviously the building and seeing the prison where everyone was kept. And then he goes to that very special room where the monsters were kept. And there's Maeda waiting. And he's like, oh, old friend, I didn't bring any security just so it'd be us. And he's just like, oh, are we really friends? She's like, yeah, a lot of stuff has changed. So much time has passed between us. But she's like, I'd like to believe it's still there. Because she has this whole conversation about his belief that every life matters. And it's like, oh, how does any other life stack up towards Cheok? And then proceeds to we see that Jong Hyuk, Yeongil and Captain Yu have been captured and thrown in a monster pit. It's like you have to choose between saving them or save Cheok. She's going to be thrown in a tank, lose her Najin. So it's either she's going to end up losing her memory, and you're going to are you going to be with the person who lost their memory and who might become a different person like you did when you were at Hojay, or she might just straight up die. So you have to choose, like, who are you going to save? Like, which life is more valuable? And she kind of walks away, but he grabs her and injects her with the pen and nullifies her Najin. But then, like, her cronies come and he's fighting them while everyone downstairs is kind of fearing for their life with the monsters. And once again, Jang just being the badass, just like punching the ground repeatedly, breaking through the glass. I'm like, this dude is stupid strong. Especially doing it with the last guy came to attack him, grabs him midair and slams him down to break the glass. I was like, once again, that's so badass. And then he goes up and he fights the monster. The other two kind of just like, they pop up, but then they just kind of fall to the background, just kind of disappear. Don't worry about that. It just becomes mainly about the first monster he's facing. And it's almost like history repeating itself. It's just like, here we are. It's like, I mean, it's all these years later and the circumstances are different. You're not a normal human standing before this monster. Once again, it's just that power scaling thing of like, yeah, took so much to deal with one monster. I mean, technically he had two because everything that was going on with Myung/Akiko, but still, like, Cheok's mom was like the big monster threat, and now it's here you are, but you're not a normal human. So he's trying to make sure the other three get out of there, and he's fighting off this creature, and it's so badass, and it's just like still getting up. And there's a part of, I think Maeda was kind of surprised to see him going so hard into pain of like, he's still doing this, because she wanted to make him suffer, but he's not suffering, he's just pushing through. It's like, I'm gonna save them because they need my help immediately, and I know Cheok would want me to do this. So, but because in his mind it's like, I'm not sacrificing one over the other, I'm going to save everybody, or I'm going to try to. But at the same time this is happening, like, Cheok isn't going to take this lying down, so she's trying to get away from the guys because they're going to put her in the tank. And Big Dude keeps hitting her, telling her to give up. And for her, it's like, no, I'm not going to, until Main Dude shows up and he's just like, aren't you afraid of death? And for her, she's like, I'm not. Like, neither me nor Jang are afraid of death, because it's like, we're more afraid of being left alone and unable to die. That is much scarier than dying. You know, it's like they both are fearless when it comes to death. They've put themselves, they don't want to die, but it's like they're not afraid if death comes their way. And even Home Dude being like, oh, those eyes. He's like, I like those eyes of yours. He's like, it's such a shame, like, I have to kind of nip that in the bud, but it's like that spirit inside of you, I admire that. And tosses her in the tank. But something miraculous happens while she's in the tank and they're lowering the temperature. Is that even though her Najin is asleep, there is these tendrils start coming out. And at first I was scared. I was like, oh my god, is she going to become I was like, this shouldn't, nothing in this tank should have the same effect of making her into a monster like her mom was. But it's because on some level you're like, because even he's like, how is that happening? It's like, it's some level of consciousness that's still in that Najin. Some of her mom is still there. Just like the whole and it's coming back to that conversation that Kato had about Seonjo to Maeda, saying that maternal instinct kind of passed on to him and onto Seonjo. So the same thing's there, where it's like there's some conscious level of her mom there still trying to protect her and keeping her safe, kind of almost trying to create like a tendril, thorny barrier around it. But eventually it kind of finally cracks and the Najin swims out of her. But either way, we go back to Jang duking it out with this creature as he's trying to get everyone else got them in the elevator and away from the monster. And just that final moment was so badass, where it sends out the tendril that eats your brain and stuff. He dodges it, slices it, and I was like, oh, because he was slicing and dicing this. I was just the maneuverability during this fight. I was like, once again, it's not a regular human duking it out, so you're knocking me around, I can get back up. And then there was at this point where Jang is talking to it. He's like, I know you're in pain too. Calm down. And once again, it seemed like one of the experiments was trying to do that to see if someone with a Najin inside of them could control the other monsters. And it's there. So once again, there's just something about Jang that was able to kind of resonate with them. I mean, to be fair, it's even in their state, even Cheok's mom was still there on some level. So I think the same thing's applicable here. And I think you see Maeda look at it like, what the hell? So she proceeds to try and put everyone to sleep in the room with nitrogen. But Jang luckily hopped off the monster and got to the higher level. I thought she was going to be waiting for him, which she is later, but that's after he got up there, checked on everybody, made sure okay guys, get up the stairs, there's a long hallway, get out of here. It's I'm gonna go get Cheok. He's I will make it out of here with her, and sends them on their way, which we catch up with them later on because luckily Captain Yu was able to call for backup, and everyone shows up, and I was like, is that dirty cop going to show up? And lo and behold, he's there. Oh my god, is it just you two? Which we'll get to that in a second. But I love that he's looking at the watch. I was like, what does that mean? And it's because as he was passing out after the car accident, he saw that watch. I was like, wow, because we knew someone was following you. Plus, you got sideswiped by the truck, so it's he's the one that was following you. But now he's seeing that, and he's like, yeah, everything's fine. So he's like, he didn't do anything by the end of the episode, so he's probably going to keep him in play just to know, all right, this guy's going to be pumped, trying to get information off of us, so I'm going to keep him in play so I can feed him false information. Maybe something does happen, we just didn't get to see it, but he knows now, oh, you're an insider, you're working with Gyeongseong, so it's okay. But yeah, there's the Jong Hyuk of it all, because it's right, I did kill 3 people, and he's right, you'll have to pay for what you did, because he's at the end of the day, what we're going to do is I'm going to try and, include the mitigating factors and make sure you're taken care of. But also, he can't be in custody because the company would come after him again. But he disappears, and then he just goes the guy's oh, is it just you two? He was yeah, because he's well, I know you work for the biotech company, so I don't want to take the chance that you end up ratting him out and trying to come after him. So it's I'll go ahead with the story of, yeah, he's just out there on his own. Sad he never gets to go back to his mom under his circumstance, because he knows they'll be looking for me potentially there. Plus, I also don't want to put my mom in danger. So, which is really sad and tragic on that front. But either way, the situation with the main dude, after the Najin left, after it left Cheok, he's oh, I'm gonna need that Najin. I was right, you lost Jong Hyuk, but it's hers has been festering inside of hers for years, and so it's like it's still the perfect one to give to your daughter. So I was like, right, he tried to make the best of it because it's still a win-win. Mayetta gets what she wants, but I also get what I want, which we'll get to that in a second because I forgot. Speaking of Mayetta, I thought it was interesting the situation with Jang. Like, she pulled a gun on him, wasn't really done anything, probably slowed him down a little bit, but he just walks past her, and I'm so curious what crossed her mind in that moment of, like, right, that like he could kill you. You're not like you don't have your regenerative abilities right now. You would die if he killed you, but for him it's like you're not even worth it. I'm like, you're not worth wasting any time that I could be spending on someone I care about. So it's just kind of like there's the element of, despite her being like, I don't want to care about anyone, because she's fed off of this dynamic for so long, so many years. It's like, I want to stay in your life. Even if you hate me, at least you're still thinking about me. Because there was a whole conversation of, he was like, because she was like, oh, it's kind of worse off you losing your memory. And Jang, it's like, if you knew how I remembered you, you wouldn't like that. But she's like, yeah, but not having those memories at all, it's kind of like, even with the bad memories, it's still kind of bad not having even the bad memories. So for her, it's like, I'd rather be seen, but for him to just like not even see you, to walk not only through you and past you, literally, but also figuratively as well. I think that's what kind of made her go like, right, there's like, that's him severing every connection. And also he proved to you like, yeah, like, I'll protect everyone I care about. And just like, you were just never someone that way to me. Maybe at one point you could have been, but you became so obsessive, which just leads into the conversation she has with Seongjo, where he's like, why'd you try to kill me? And it's just like, basically it's like, did you ever really care about me and see me as your son? And for her, she talks about people's relationships with each other. She's like, it creates a uselessness in people because, like, yeah, we care about someone, relationships, whether it's a companion, a mother, a lover, that companion, that need and connection can make people useless. And she's like, I want to make you perfect, because she herself tried to be above it, but everything she did, even though she tried to be stoic and all about her revenge and only wants to see pain, she was still driven by those connections that have soured. And it's just, she was controlled by it. And so she wants Seongjo to be like that. He's like, okay, forgive me for, like, I have let you down and I won't do it again. I will be what you want me to be. Which is so interesting too, because it kind of takes that line of Cheok. It's like, Cheok had said the last time they saw each other earlier in the episode, saying, Jang will be so disappointed in you becoming the monster, choosing to become the monster. And he chose that. He's like, all right, I will be perfect. So just kind of accept me as I am. He throws her in the pit where the monster is sleeping. And as we know, when they sleep, they create an atmosphere of anthrax. And so she falls in there, because I thought, well, like, okay, she's going to fall in there, get ripped apart. I forgot about the anthrax of it. And for a second, I was like, oh, is she going to become one of them? But it's like, once again, her Najin's sleeping right now. So her skin is just being burned by the anthrax, and she just smiles and says, beautiful. Now, I don't know if that's in relation to just everything, like, this beautiful death, and just staring up at the light, and like the monster she created in Seongjo, like, that will be kind of her legacy. I don't know how much of that is what was said in that moment, but all the same time this is happening, Jang finally shows up, knocks everybody out. Big dude grabs him, slams his head repeatedly into the wall, and then proceeds to break the glass to free Cheok. And is like, did he get to her in time? At the time, we didn't know. And then home dude, main guy, shows up, and he, the Najin he was just about to go get is there on the floor. But we did hear a sound, so I don't know if that Najin is actually dead or not. So he might have been able to put it inside of his daughter, because it might, like, there was a sound, but he was still standing there. So I don't know if it's like they don't have the means to put it in anyway, or that was like a last cry. It's just like, it died, and now it's like, especially that specific Najin, considering where it started in, Cheok's mom went to her, and it's supposed to be his daughter's final lifeline, but it's like, that didn't work out. Like I said, it could have, but later on, Gyeongseong, like, biotech stuff, we don't see him, but he still could be there because he still needs it, or maybe he took it and bounced. I don't know. That's still left up in the air, but yeah, like, the cops did investigate the business, but despite everything, they couldn't find anything. It's like, they got away with it again. Again, they continue to get away with it. You're just like, and nothing was found. So I'm like, yeah, there's so many loose ends that you're like, there's still plenty of story left, because Seongjo is still like a loose end. And at the time, we were like, well, we don't know what's happening with Cheok, and we cut to Jonghyuk's mom, and she's preparing food. I was like, can't be for her son because police would be looking for him. And then we see Cheok. I was like, she doesn't have her memory, and he's looking, and she's Jung Hyuk's mom is looking after her. But we also saw a picture of her and Miss Noel, and you're like, so did we know that Miss Noel? Because Miss Noel didn't have any children, did she? I think I think that's why that picture is such a. But I'm like, she did, because that's why she like latched on to Jen. But maybe she did have a daughter, and I'm just not remembering. Maybe that did come up. Someone's like, oh, no wonder you're so close to Jang. It's kind of like a family thing, and that's probably why he trusted you with Cheot to look after her. Especially considering like her son's not in her life, so it kind of fills that void to some extent. But she knows like, hey, my son's out there somewhere. I just gotta hope and pray he can come home eventually, but he's probably gonna be on the run for a while. But I also love that obviously Cheok doesn't have her memories, but she's looking through her jewelry and she puts on the bracelet that Jane gave her, and it's like she might not remember, but and even she noticed and being like, oh, do you have a boyfriend? So she probably knows that Jane gave that to her, but it's like she's like, no, I'll get one when that one pops up. But it seems like she's in college and she's studying, but she does still, she's like, I had this dream of like I'm chasing after someone, but I can never remember, and it just breaks my heart. And the moment she walks past a place and then like some dude comes out of a store and we like he's out of focus, I was like, that was Jang, wasn't it? Because of course he's going to stay around to keep an eye on her, because that was also a thing about Maeda. She popped in on Jang after he lost his memory, and it's just the hardest thing was like him seeing through her. So that probably goes back to the point I made where it's just kind of like even with that, it was heartbreaking seeing him, because once again it's like, I want to stay in your life even if you hate me. Like, you seeing through me is the worst possible thing, and it's like I always want to be remembered by you, even if our relationship is effed up as it is. I want that hate, because at least I'm still on your mind, I'm still in your thoughts. But here it's like, you don't know who I am, you walk past me because I'm a stranger to you. And that kind of same feeling came back, in the episode too. When he went to go save Cheok. So, but the two of them look at each other and smile. But it's like she's probably remembering on some level, but I don't think she fully remembers. So it is a situation of he'll probably stop by and check on her from time to time. But it's like, yeah, I'll wait as long as it takes for you to remember, and I'll be there to jog your memory, and we can continue living from here. It's a complicated thing though, because she's a normal human now, and he's still got a Najin, so he's gonna live for a while. But then we have our stinger at the end where Seong-jo is running everything. All the vials of Najin are being put into the water bottles, and so they're going to cause a massive epidemic with the Najin. So many people, as we see, not everyone survives it. So we're going to have some people straight up dying from it. We're going to see some people become Najin and get infected by the Najin, become monsters and kill people. So Seong-jo's trying to change this world into what he wants it to be. So once again, plenty of story left to tell. I am getting to this, it's a little less than 2 weeks ago this all came out, so I've been trying to get to the episodes as I can, but it's October 9th at the time of me recording this. There should be plenty of enough time for me to get this up today. I might wait to put it up tomorrow, or I might just wait for today. It doesn't really matter. Either way, it's the 9th, and there's still no news on whether or not there's going to be a season 3. Once again, there's plenty enough story to tell, and especially where do you go from here. I'm curious. I feel like if there does end up being a 3rd season, it feels most likely that it would be a final season situation, considering where we are storyline wise, but I don't know. And also, if we get a 3rd season, we might get it super quickly. Once again, like, I was not expecting, like, once again, the final 3, like, episodes 8, 9, and 10 aired in, like, January 5th. And it's like, September is when season 2 dropped. It's like, so that production was, once again, I don't know enough about Asian production, so like the turnaround on some of this stuff might be like way faster than I kind of give it credit for, because I'm thinking of the mindset of like most shows now have like a 2-year period in between seasons. That tends to be American productions, but I'm sure that can creep over to other things. But I mean, it's like, look at the turnaround between season 2 and 3 of Sweet Home. To be fair, those were filmed back to back, so that turnaround made a lot of sense. Of like, yeah, because you're doing both seasons at once. There was, especially considering there's a massive gap between season 1 and 2. But I don't know if pandemic stuff like played a role in that. Either way, I'm going on this massive tangent. So hopefully we hear news soon on whether or not it's a thing of like, it's satisfactory enough if you did end it here just like season 1, but it's also like, no, but there is still plenty story to tell. That's what the tease at the end, the stinger at the end is set up for. So I'd be so curious to see where things kind of go. What, you know, the people in Jang's life post all of this. Like I said, the whole situation with Captain Yu, it's like that dirty cop that's on your side. Like, do you keep him around to feed him false information to try and take down a biotech company, which it seems like they got away from the situation scot-free, like being accused of human experimentations, but no proof was found because the lab, they were just able to just kind of up and bounce. So where this new lab is, it feels like a new era too, considering like all that was built off of the old hospital and everything. So they're kind of finally leaving that behind. So where's this new place they're setting up? Who's still around? Like I said, his main dude still at the company, or did he get that nausea into his daughter like he wanted to and he's off on his own? So many questions. So I'd be so excited to see a season 3. And like I said, I get the feeling if it does get a 3rd season, it will probably most likely be the final season. But who knows? There might even be more story beyond that to tell. It just depends on what story they craft for a potential season 3. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.